Okay, so today we're doing a bit of a public service video. We're looking at the Embraer 195 in Microsoft Flight Simulator. This is one of the cheaper aeroplanes in the marketplace, and several people have been asking me to have a look at this, both in terms of adding it to the virtual airline that I'm building and just to kind of let people see what they're going to get for their money. I think it's £12, which is probably about $15 at the moment, US. It's used for commuter routes all over the world, the Embraer 195, and you can see from the outside view it's actually done really nicely outside. But why is it so cheap? You find out as soon as you go inside. So we're going to have a look at it, and we're going to have a fly of it. And we'll fly it on a short route over from Stansted to Oxford in England, and we'll see if we can get it started up without really looking at instructions or anything like that. But you'll notice loading into the aircraft on the stand, it's up and running already, and I've kind of had a quick look to familiarise myself where switches are. If we go and turn the batteries off, and we can see it goes dark, which is kind of good. We can then turn the batteries back to on, and everything's instantly back, so there's no concept of any kind of inertial navigation system warm-up or anything. It just works. Yeah, so I guess we have to have a little talk here about expectations and the audience this aeroplane is designed for. This is difficult to put into words and difficult to explain without annoying people. There is a growing sentiment in the flight sim community that I don't like, that some people have become very aloof about. If it isn't a study level plane, then it's rubbish. You have to remember that Flight Simulator isn't just designed for the hardcore simulation or real pilot training crowd who want a real plane that works correctly and that you could jump from the simulator into the real thing and operate it quite confidently. There is another much bigger group of users who just want to have fun, and if this plane is going to let them do that without spending too much money, then who's to complain that, it's horses for courses. So we'll see if this plane is still fun. It's obviously not going to be a study level airplane. A lot of the knobs and things aren't going to work as you might expect, but if it's fun to fly and it works fairly reliably, we'll have a go with it. And we're not going to complain too much about, yes, it doesn't look maybe as posh as some of the other airplanes, and maybe things don't work as they should, but that's not the point. This is for a different audience entirely. This is for people who just want to be able to get in a plane and start it. So we'll do things a little bit like they would. I mean, we can see if we look around, we've got APU bleed and things like that, so we can go and turn APU bleed on, and we could, for example, go and turn these switches to auto for the ignition, and we could turn the starter switches for the engines to start, and we could struggle all day with it. There is an instruction book, but it's a video. We could go and have a look around and see why this isn't working, for example. So let's turn the APU bleed back on, try and figure out why it wouldn't start maybe. Ground power unit is available, so we'll switch that on. So we're still getting nothing on the N2 numbers, which is probably my fault. So maybe we have to do something with the engines. Who knows? Let's press Control E, which is the audience for this plane would press Control E. And the engines are coming up. Nothing's moved in the cockpit. It's all everything's in the same place it was, but the plane's starting up. We'll get rid of the caution and the warning. And while we're waiting for the engines to fire up, let's go and have we ought to go and turn the lights on. Let's try and do things a little bit correctly. So external lights, we're putting the engines on, so we want the beacon light on and the nav lights on. We don't need taxi lights yet, so let's go and program a flight. So let's have a look at this flight management computer. I'm guessing that klaxon is telling us that the engines are running. So if we Go and have a look outside. Yeah, you can see they're up and running. So they started very quickly, which is quite amusing in a way. Okay, so we've got the FMC here. It looks suspiciously like an Airbus FMC or MCDU that's been kind of shoehorned into this interface, but that's fine. Let's go and have a look. Can we program a route? So again, the audience for this plane would probably have programmed a route from the main menu in Flight Simulator, and then would expect it to be in here, and I believe that works, but we'll see what we can do in here as well. So we'll put in EGSS, which is the ICAO code for Stansted, and yeah, this is Airbus, look, it's asking for it in that format. EGSS / we'll go to Oxford EGTK, so we'll program that in and return, and that's programmed that in. We'll put in a cost index, so they've kind of got this hybrid of bits of the Airbus interface, which is quite cool actually. You know, for somebody starting out, this would be easy to understand what you're doing. Choosing a flight level. There's no way to go side, or will the sideways arrow? Oh, it will work. Okay, so we don't have to fiddle with anything on that page. Okay, so let's go and look at our performance page. So V1, is it going to pre-calculate? Yeah, so they've simplified it enormously. So normally you'd have to go to an EFB and program in data to get this, but it's giving us our rotate speeds. I guess we can put in flaps 1 maybe? Will it let us? Yes, it will. We could go and look in the flight plan page now and say we're going to leave Stansted on runway 22. We're not going to bother with a standard instrument departure, so we'll just insert that into our flight plan. Then we'll arrive at Oxford on runway ILS for runway 19, and we'll insert that. So that's given us our legs for our route, and if we push this upwards, we can see there are no discontinuities, which again for a beginner is fantastic. So let's just go and have a look at little nav map. So we would want to go out to ECVEG and then on to CF19. We could put a yeah, let's add some extra waypoints just to see how nicely this works. So let's go via ECVEG, the Bovingdon VOR, Daventry VOR, CF19 into the ILS. So let's go back into Flight Simulator, and we need to look out for our CF19 is already there, look. So what we're looking for is the in-between part of the route. So we're going to insert ahead of this. So we're going to go for the Bovingdon VOR, which would be BNN. So BNN. Let's see if this even works. So we're going to try and drop it on there. Is it going to do it? It's asking now which one we want. So we want the Bovingdon VOR, which is correct. And it's done it in the wrong place, by the look of it. Let's push this up. It's changed the destination of the flight to be Bovingdon, which is a shame. So can we clear it back out? Okay, so that's not going to work. So let's give this another chance. We're going to go back to the main menu and we're going to program a flight through the main menu, because obviously the MCDU fake flight computer doesn't work properly in the aeroplane. But again, the audience for this plane probably wouldn't be trying to do that. So we'll go from Stansted. We're going to change the time here so we get sunshine in the cockpit for you to see it. And we're going to go to EGTK Oxford. We're going to do this IFR, low altitude. How does it want to try and do it? That's interesting. That's going to be an almost impossible takeoff, but we'll let it have a go at it. Oh, it's putting a... Okay, so it's kind of it's using a standard instrument departure. Anyway, we'll let it do what it wants to do. We're trying to remember at each stage here, we'll let the sim do what it wants, and we'll say fly. Now, I haven't told it to put us on a parking spot. I've just said, you know, get us ready to fly. So we'll see how we go.
Tower UAL 0736716.
Okay, yeah, so we're on the
Oxford.
airfield, and you can see, yeah, the full flight plan has been programmed in, so we don't have to do anything. So we'll turn off the caution and the warning. Do they give us a reason why? Let's go and have a look on the engineering screen. GPWS off, parking brake. So that's going to be wind shear. Is there a wind shear switch? I mean, on the Airbus it's over here. I'm not sure if it's going to even got a wind shear switch. So I highly doubt it. All of the lights are on, which is correct. Have we got a GPWS wind shear switch somewhere? I don't think we have, you know. We will turn on the smoking sign note. Emergency lights auto. That will do. And fasten seatbelts on. I'm just having a quick look round to see what it actually has got. So, you know, if you're just starting out, this is probably, you know, all good stuff for you to be learning about procedures without having too many penalties if you do things wrong. Okay. So the fact that this is complaining about wind shear makes me wonder if this is, yeah, it's basically bits and pieces stolen from other planes, but without potentially the buttons to do anything about them. Okay. So let's release the parking brake. Flaps to takeoff position. Your damper is on. Normally you would go and pre-program the altitude that you're going to target, so we'll go for 10,000 feet. So I've just gone a bit too far there. So you should see that change to 10. There's a huge lag between rolling this knob and that changing. That's a bit of a shame. On takeoff, can we select this before we do anything? Yes, we can.
Tower 10X 144
That's interesting.
10 miles northeast, inbound ILS runway 22 approach.
So
10X 1448 tower.
we presumably then can use auto throttle, and we can already turn that on. You can see a target speed has appeared, and it's trying to accelerate already. Okay, well, we'll let it take off on auto throttle then, if it wants to. We'll just steer.
80 knots.
ILS runway 22 approach 10X 1448.
V1, rotate. V2,
It just came off the ground like it doesn't weigh anything, which is a bit annoying. So undercarriage up, flaps up, and let's turn the autopilot on.
Pull up.
And it's not doing much about climbing, is it?
Minimum.
So we'll do flight level change,
Terrain. Pull up.
and I'm going to have to set the autopilot off. So the auto throttle seems to be completely at sea, which is a shame. It's not even letting me change the speed.
716 contact London Center on 118.475. Good day.
Terrain. Pull
So
up.
if I go back for autopilot again,
Terrain. Terrain. Pull up.
it now seems to be
Terrain,
behaving,
terrain.
and the speed has appeared.
Did you hear my last transmission?
I'm just going to go and shut up air traffic control.
10x1448 wind 240 at 10. Clear to land runway 22.
Going to 118 decimal 475 UAL
So we're not going to.
0736716.
So flight level change is lit up, and yeah, it's following the.
Clear to
We
land
haven't.
runway
We've got
22,
zero thrust on our
10x
throttles,
1448.
which is a bit disconcerting. So it's kind of working. It's a shame, isn't it? Because outside it looks the part. It really does. And yet the controls don't really associate with what's going on with the aircraft. And as much as I'm trying to think this is for a different audience than the study level gang, this would actually give you a really bad experience in the simulator because things are not logical. And you'll click switches expecting something to happen based maybe on what you're reading, and it doesn't happen. Or at least it makes no sense about things that being on or off. And the lag behind the controls is quite difficult to understand about what's going on. I have no idea why we've got a warning there. So let's have a look on the map and see what flight plan this is actually doing, because obviously it's nothing like the flight plan we were going to do. So it's going for the Barclay,
1448 contact ground on 121.73.
Barkway, sorry, VOR, and then turning over towards Oxford. What I'm going to do is come back into Stansted. Let's see if we can reprogram this then. So if we were to go to heading mode, can we see the heading? Yeah, we can see a heading marker on the compass here. So let's see if we can go north and switch this to heading mode. So it's going to turn north for us, which is good. We're going to change our target altitude. It's a bit worrying that I can't see a target altitude anywhere now. So I'm changing it, but it doesn't appear anywhere. So let's do flight level change. No, we don't appear to be able to set a target altitude. So what I'm going to do is turn the autopilot completely off. And fly my hand
Autopilot.
and see if we can bring it back in. We'll turn the auto throttle off as well. So I think the lesson here is this plane actually, although it's very simplified, it's kind of like the Fisher-Price version of the cockpit. It really doesn't do what you'd expect when you do anything. There's a kind of a decouple between the controls and what actually happens, which is a shame. And I think that causes more problems than it just being a simplified version of anything. The fact that it is not logical is more damaging for somebody trying to learn, because then they won't learn the why or the how. I mean, if you're going to simplify it, you maybe go the route of the 146. The BAE 146 has got a simplified flight management system where they used the core of the programming that Working Title did for the CJ4, and they built it into the 146. But it's logical and it makes sense. It's massively simplified, but it allows you to program routes in a logical manner, you know, and what you do has a direct bearing on what you can see happening, and that isn't true of this. So I've disabled the autopilot and I'm just trimming it gently. We're going far too fast. So I've cut the engines back to idle. Let's see how well the spoilers work. So I've gone full spoilers. Whoa, look at the speed come off. This is like flying a paper plane. I can pretty much control it any which way I like. I don't think there really is a flight model here. Okay, so let's see if we can go and reprogram the ILS. If we have a look at our crazy flight plan here, we're coming back round towards Stansted, so we want 110.50. Can we program the radio? So we want 110.50 and plug that into the ILS box. So the course for the ILS will be 223 degrees. Let's just be careful of our height here, getting very low. I'm just going to trim us out so we don't keep going down. Just looking at the vertical speed over here. So we want 223 degrees. Is it going to let us put it in?
Terrain, terrain. Pull up.
Yeah, we're quite low.
Terrain, terrain.
Let's pull ourselves back
Pull
up.
up.
We'll come up to
Terrain,
2,500 feet, which will be our
up.
entry point normally for the ILS. Or 2,800 actually at Stansted. So we're going to open the engines.
Terrain, terrain. Pull up. Terrain.
I will say it's very, very
Pull
easy
up.
to fly on
Terrain,
manual control.
Terrain. Pull up.
Because you can point it any which way you want and the engines just accelerate it. So in terms of like learning it to fly as an arcade game, if you're coming from that world, this would be great, because on manual control it does exactly what you want. It's just the systems that it kind of pretends to have don't work. So let's see. Can we change this to can we change the display? I'm not sure that we can. I mean, we're heading in towards Stansted and you can see the runway down now in front of us. It's quite amusing, isn't it? We can play it like a video game, basically. We don't appear to have control over the what we... oh, here we go, rose mode. So let's put it on approach. That's better. So is it going to behave? So we're above the glide slope and to the left, which obviously we can see. So is that going to behave? Let's slow down a bit more.
Landing gear. Landing gear.
So we'll put the
Landing
gear down,
gear.
seeing as he's asking. Full flaps now. 130 knots, just off the stall limit. So we're off to the left slightly, so we'll just correct for that. Pretty much on the ILS. Be interesting to see what it's like over the runway, or if we just plough into the runway, if I can stall it onto the runway at all.
400.
I have a horrible feeling it's just going to sink like a brick when it gets to a certain speed.
300.
It doesn't seem to be responding to the weather at all. There's no bumpiness
200.
at all.
$50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
There's no rolling sound, which is quite odd. So let's put the flaps up. We can't actually, there's no engine sound from inside the cockpit, is there? That's what's odd about it. It's strangely silent. So, I would say, on reflection looking at this, even though it looks the part from outside, it kind of flies like a toy aeroplane, and the controls don't make any sense, which will give you misleading feedback. And yeah, there's no kind of experience of anything going on because of the sound being missing. I've just realised that is the major thing that's off-putting. Actually piloting it by hand wasn't too bad. None of the systems worked as you'd expect, which was odd, and you can see things flickering down here. There was a delay between doing things in the cockpit and them appearing. Some things didn't come up at all, like the target altitude. Having said that, it's going to be a very difficult one, because if you were saying, okay, this is for a different audience, I would say this is actually quite damaging. I would say you'd be better off saving your money and buying either the PMDG 737-600, which is only 30 something pounds, or the BAE 146, which is a similar amount of money.
Tower 2A air and hashtag 91, 52 and hashtag 93, 89110 miles northeast inbound ILS runway.
Just waiting
22
for
approach.
ILS, waiting for the
2A
controller
air
to
and
shut up.
hashtag 91, 52 and
Can we just
hashtag
go and
93,
detune the
891
comm
tower.
radio maybe?
Altimeter 29er decimal.
Yeah, that'll shut her up. Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I would say, although this is a privileged position from somebody that has flown the study level aircraft in the simulator and learnt them inside out, so it's very difficult for me to be objective in terms of thinking in terms of a newcomer coming to the sim. My worry is planes like this would actually damage your experience, because if you are starting out and you're looking for logical feedback in terms of the actions you have performed that can be explained, this plane's not going to do that. It's not that it's simplified, it's broken. And that changes the game in terms of it being an educational tool. But you may not be looking for an educational tool. If you just want something that looks a bit like a business jet that you can go bombing around the sky and flying it by hand, then yeah, this isn't too expensive. But then the simulator comes with far better aeroplanes that are built in. You know, even the stock Airbus, the CRJ, or the Citation Longitude. Sorry, not the CRJ, the CJ4 or the Longitude are far superior to this, and they come with it for free. Anyway, you can't say this wasn't of value, because some people would be looking at this plane in the marketplace and thinking, is it worth buying? And you've just seen what happened on that flight. I ended up coming in manually and coming back because it was pretty much unconfigurable for an IFR flight plan. It really didn't do anything it should have. And yeah, I'm not even going to continue picking away at it. I was trying desperately not to early on. But my comment still stands about people being aloof about the bigger planes, you know, the study level planes. I think often people forget where they started from. And with the knowledge they then have, they then judge others that are just starting out. And I don't think that's fair at all. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. So this was the Embraer 195 from the marketplace. It's up to you whether you spend your money on it, having watched this and seen what I've kind of pointed out about it. Okay, I'm going to leave it there.